Unveiling the controversies, 10 shocking facts about diplomat George C. Marshall. George C. Marshall is widely celebrated for his pivotal role in shaping post-World War II geopolitics, notably with the Marshall Plan. However, behind his statesman facade lie numerous scandalous and shocking truths that often remain obscured. Delve into the enigmatic life of this diplomat, where scandals intertwine with his remarkable achievements. Fact number 1. Marshall's childhood trauma, the orphan diplomat. George C. Marshall, born on December 31, 1880, in Uniontown, Pennsylvania, endured profound loss during his formative years. Tragedy struck in 1897 when his father, George Marshall Sr., a prosperous businessman, passed away unexpectedly at the age of 49. At the time, young George was just 16 years old, and the loss of his father left a significant void in his life. Barely a year later, in 1898, George's mother, Laura Emily Bradford Marshall, also succumbed to illness, leaving him orphaned at the tender age of 17. This double blow of losing both parents within a short span of time undoubtedly had a profound impact on Marshall's psyche, forcing him to mature quickly and shoulder adult responsibilities prematurely. The experience instilled in him resilience and a strong sense of self-reliance, traits that would shape his character and influence his future endeavors in diplomacy and military leadership. Number 2. The Marshall divorce scandal, a rift in personal life. In 1929, the personal life of George C. Marshall faced significant upheaval with the breakdown of his marriage to Elizabeth Carter Coles. Despite Marshall's preference for privacy and discretion, historical records indicate signs of strain in their relationship. The precise reasons behind the discord remain somewhat obscure, but evidence suggests that marital tensions had been simmering for some time before their separation. The couple eventually parted ways, and their divorce was finalized, marking a significant chapter of turmoil in Marshall's personal life. Although the specifics of their marital discord remain largely veiled from public scrutiny, the dissolution of his marriage hinted at deeper complexities beneath Marshall's stoic exterior, providing a glimpse into the intricacies of his private life and the challenges he faced beyond the realm of public service. Number 3. The controversial role in China. Amid the backdrop of the Chinese Civil War, George C. Marshall assumed a critical diplomatic role as the special envoy to China in 1945. Tasked with mediating between the ruling nationalist government, led by Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek, and the burgeoning communist forces under Mao Zedong, Marshall faced an immense diplomatic challenge. His efforts culminated in the crafting of the Marshall Mission in 1946, which aimed to broker a ceasefire and facilitate the formation of a coalition government. However, Marshall's policies, notably the decision to impose a temporary embargo on U.S. military aid to the nationalists, have been met with considerable controversy. Critics argue that this move weakened the nationalist forces and inadvertently contributed to the communist victory in 1949, leading to the establishment of the People's Republic of China. Marshall's diplomatic intervention in China remains a subject of intense historical debate, reflecting the complex interplay of geopolitical interests and ideological tensions during the Cold War era. Number 4. Tension with MacArthur. During the Korean War, George C. Marshall's professional relationship with General Douglas MacArthur, the commander of United Nations forces, reached a breaking point. Tensions escalated over disagreements regarding military strategy and command hierarchy. The rift became public when MacArthur openly criticized President Harry Truman's policies, advocating for an aggressive approach that extended beyond the confines of Truman's directives. Marshall, then serving as Secretary of Defense, sided with Truman, endorsing a more restrained approach to the conflict. The culmination of this discord came in April 1951 when Truman relieved MacArthur of his command, a decision supported by Marshall. The dismissal of such a prominent military figure sparked a firestorm of controversy and raised questions about civilian control over the military, highlighting the complexities of wartime leadership amidst political tensions. Number 5. Skepticism of Israel's viability. In the aftermath of World War II, as Secretary of State, George C. Marshall grappled with the question of whether to recognize the nascent state of Israel. Marshall, along with several other key policymakers, harbored doubts about the viability of a Jewish state in the volatile Middle East region. Concerns were raised regarding the potential for prolonged conflict with neighboring Arab states and the destabilizing effects it could have on the region. Marshall's cautious stance against immediate recognition of Israel's statehood, while reflecting strategic deliberations, sparked controversy within American political and public spheres, particularly given the widespread support for Israel. However, Marshall's reservations were eventually overridden, and the United States officially recognized Israel on May 14, 1948, just moments after its declaration of independence. Number 6. NATO and American militarism. George C. Marshall played a pivotal role in advocating for the establishment of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, during his tenure as Secretary of State. In April 1949, Marshall signed the NATO treaty on behalf of the United States, solidifying America's commitment to a permanent international military alliance. This marked a significant departure from traditional American foreign policy, which had previously been characterized by a reluctance to engage in permanent military alliances. Marshall's strong advocacy for NATO was driven by the perceived need to counter Soviet expansionism and bolster collective security among Western nations in the aftermath of World War II. However, the establishment of NATO has since been criticized by some for promoting militarism and perpetuating global divisions during the Cold War era, as it effectively aligned Western nations against the Soviet Union and its allies, exacerbating tensions between the East and West. Number 7. Resistance to early integration efforts. George C. Marshall's stance on military integration during his tenure as Secretary of Defense in the late 1940s reflected the broader resistance within the military establishment towards rapid desegregation. While not overtly opposed to the idea of integrating the U.S. military, Marshall adopted a cautious approach, prioritizing military cohesion and readiness over immediate integration efforts. This stance was in line with prevailing sentiments within the military leadership at the time, where concerns over the potential impact of desegregation on unit effectiveness and morale were widespread. Marshall's cautious approach drew criticism, particularly as civil rights movements gained momentum across the country. However, it wasn't until after Marshall's tenure, with President Harry Truman's Executive Order 9981 in July 1948, that formal steps towards desegregating the military began, marking a significant shift in American military policy. Number 8. Marshall's tumultuous relationship with President Truman. Behind the carefully crafted facade of unity presented to the public, George C. Marshall's relationship with President Harry Truman was marked by tension and discord, particularly over foreign policy decisions. Disagreements between the two leaders, including their handling of the Korean War, strained their rapport and revealed underlying power struggles within the highest echelons of government. Truman perceived Marshall as overly cautious in his approach to foreign policy, often clashing with the diplomat's steadfast commitment to strategic deliberation and careful consideration of all options. These tensions reached a climax during the Korean War, where Truman's decision-making and Marshall's advice diverged significantly, leading to friction between the two leaders. Number 9. The Marshall Plan, benevolence or political machination? The Marshall Plan, officially known as the European Recovery Program, emerged in the aftermath of World War II as a landmark initiative aimed at revitalizing war-ravaged Europe. Spearheaded by George C. Marshall, the plan sought to provide substantial economic aid to Western European countries to facilitate their reconstruction and foster stability in the region. However, beneath the veneer of humanitarian aid lay complex geopolitical considerations. Critics argue that the Marshall Plan was not solely driven by altruism but rather served as a strategic tool of American hegemony in the Cold War era. By injecting massive financial assistance into Western Europe, the United States aimed to contain Soviet influence and prevent the spread of communism across the continent. This dual motive, combining humanitarian relief with geopolitical strategy, raised ethical questions about the true intentions behind the plan. While hailed as a humanitarian triumph for its role in rebuilding Europe, the Marshall Plan's geopolitical implications continue to fuel debates about the ethics of leveraging aid for strategic advantage on the world stage. Number 10. Marshall's retirement and family life. In his later years, George C. Marshall retreated from the public eye, opting for a quieter life after decades of public service. He spent his retirement years in Leesburg, Virginia, where he enjoyed gardening and leisurely pursuits. Marshall's personal life also saw him embrace the role of a family man. He married his second wife, Catherine Tupper Brown, in 1930, and they remained together until his death. Despite not having biological children of his own, Marshall took on a paternal role to Catherine's 3 children from her previous marriage, fostering a close-knit family dynamic. Marshall passed away on October 16, 1959, at the age of 78, in Washington, D.C., marking the end of an era in American diplomacy and military leadership.